first, I want to make an apology for not speaking Catalan, and because I just don't speak it. And I also want to thank the Andorran authorities for this invitation. And in particular, I want to thank Maria and her wonderful colleagues who have really gone beyond the responsibilities of any kind of conference. Your hospitality is really moving. Middle Eastern hospitality. So thank you, Maria, and all your colleagues and friends. I'm really delighted to be here. I'm delighted to be here because it's my first visit to Andorra, and I'm also delighted to be here because to connect with colleagues and to make new colleagues and friends. Gerges, and I also to meet one of my former teachers, Fred Halliday. It's been many years. I'm really delighted to see you, Fred. And I also want to make a qualification. I am no expert on terrorism. I don't believe in expertise on terrorism in the first place. And this is really a major theoretical point that I would like to stress at the outset of my talk. I am a student of social movements in Arab and Muslim societies. Social movements, major social movements, and fringe social movements. I have written my first book on radical Arab nationalism. And since the mid-1990s, I have become interested in the many faces of Islamism, what we call political Islam. And long before Al-Qaeda became a household name in Western societies, that is in the 1990s, myself, of course, and many other scholars, Gerges before all of us, he began to research this particular topic. But my assignment today is to focus not on international terrorism, really, is to focus on what we call global jihadism or transnational jihadism, that is Al-Qaeda and its like-minded groups and factions. A global jihadism as opposed to local jihadism. What I mean by global jihadism, and I know this is common sense, transnational jihadism, this is a radical ideology that was born in the 1990s. Remember, in the 1990s, as late as the first part of the 1990s. It's a radical ideology that believes in order to change, transform Arab and Muslim governments, you have to expel American influence from the heart of Islam. Once you expel American influence and Western influence from Dar al-Islam, that is from the abode of Islam, the house of Islam, then the transformation, the revolutionary transformation of Arab and Muslim society becomes a reality. While local jihadism that was born in the first part of the 20th century, around the 1940s, local jihadism believes in transforming Arab and Muslim societies by using, of course, force and violence and terrorism. So from the 1940s up to the early 1990s, the dominant militant radical ideology was local jihadism as opposed to global jihadism. And as I said earlier, transnational jihadism was not born till the first part of the 1990s. And this is not just you might say, just another point. This really goes to the very heart, to understanding the very heart of this particular beast called Al-Qaeda and its very affiliates. What I want to do today, and I know this is not the time to focus really on how and why. I'll say a few words about why global jihadism was born. This is a huge subject. I've written a book on the transformation of jihadism from the near enemy, that is you focus on attacking Arab and Muslim leaders, to focusing on attacking the United States and its close and pivotal Western allies. What I want to do today, since this is my assignment, I have no choice, I want to focus on the nature of Al-Qaeda's threat today. Where are we today? Does Al-Qaeda represent a strategic threat, as some security and terrorism experts tell us, or is really Al-Qaeda more of, you might say, a security nuisance as opposed to a strategic threat to the United States and its Western allies. Does global jihadism or transnational jihadism of the Al-Qaeda variety, does it have a viable social base in Arab and Muslim societies? You hear a great deal of nonsense about Al-Qaeda. I mean, how powerful, how influential socially, I'm talking about the social base of Al-Qaeda and its various affiliates and like-minded groups. In other words, is Al-Qaeda more of a fringe, tiny group as opposed to a viable social movement? And I'll say a few words what I mean by that. To what extent here that 8 years after 9/11, how does Muslim public opinion, how does Arab and Muslim public opinion, and Islamists in particular, Islamists, that is mainstream Islamists, those radicalized political activists who do not use force and violence, view and perceive Al-Qaeda and global jihadism 8 years after the earthquake of 9/11. How effective is Al-Qaeda's recruitment strategy? Are young Arabs and Muslims, not just in Arab and Muslim societies, but even in Western societies, are they still as attracted to global jihadism as they had been, you might say, since the late 1990s? Do they buy the rhetoric and the nonsense of Al-Qaeda and global jihadism? To summarize, has Al-Qaeda and global jihad, remember, global jihadism is greater, broader, bigger than just Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is just one, you might say, a pivotal group within this map, what we call jihadism. Has Al-Qaeda and the global jihad project, or the global jihadism project, reached a conceptual deadlock and stalemate? And this is a very critical point here about the foundation, the conceptual foundation of jihadism. Have we basically now reached a particular point where Al-Qaeda and global jihadism really has reached a conceptual dead end? And if so, how and why? Why does this conceptual dead end or stalemate, matter to us who are studying this particular fringe social movement? Most of what I say here tonight, and I hope, is based not only on field research that many of us have been doing in the last 15 or 20 years, but also on the consensus within the Western intelligence communities. That is, the consensus within the American and the Western communities about the nature of the threat that global jihadism and Al-Qaeda represent and still represent to Western societies and Middle Eastern societies. I don't mean to say that what I'm not going to say today is not controversial or contested. On the contrary, and I do hope after my presentation during the question and answer session, you take my arguments apart, and we can talk about, because it's a very contested and we have heated debates about the nature of the beast 8 years after 9/11. But let me say, before I try to answer my questions, let me say, and to come back to global jihadism, the global jihad project. Global jihadism has always been a poor cousin. If there is one particular point I really would like to stress tonight, is that global jihadism, as opposed to local jihadism, has always been a poor cousin in Arab and Muslim societies. From the 1940s up to the early 1990s, it was local jihadism, attacking Arab and Muslim governments who do not govern according to Islamic law or the Sharia. It was not till the first part of 1990s that global jihadism was born. And this is really essential to understand that even from the onset of this particular project, there has never been a critical social constituency that basically drives this particular vehicle. And this really goes to the very heart of the nature of this particular threat. And I think, contrary to what many security and terrorism experts would tell you, the birth of Al-Qaeda and global jihadism represented a monstrous mutation. The birth of Al-Qaeda and the